everybody dies, that will be the end of it, this whole story, and so what? The whole thing is completely pointless anyway, isn't it? Kill myself? Alright, fair enough.
So we're asking people, I think, a bit of a left field question, but we thought it may be particularly relevant to population matters. This is an Extinction Rebellion protest, and we wanted to ask people what they think exactly is wrong with extinction.
What's so bad about extinction?
A lot of suffering on the way.
Yeah.
A lot of suffering on the way. I mean, I think we have a limited frame of reference, given our kind of embodiment thrown into this particular time and place on this little ball of life. But given that, as far as we know, it's the only ball of life there is, and suffering is real for all of us.
Yeah.
Like, I think our main function on the planet is to try and minimise it and try and create maximum possibility for love and connection. And if there's no life, then that doesn't happen.
From our point of view, probably the biggest problem is the consumption of people, particularly in the developed countries. In the less developed countries, there are many more people, but their personal consumption is less.
Can anybody here answer the simple question, what is the problem with extinction? You don't want to die? Well, I've got some really bad news for you. I'm sorry to have to tell you this, that as much as you don't want to die, you are going to die.
There's something you said earlier about a world without life. A world without life. Wouldn't that also contain a world without... that would be a world without any suffering?
Yeah, it's like that Flight of the Conchords, where he goes...
I don't know, I've never seen that.
The elephants are all dead. There is no more suffering of elephants, or something. I can't remember the line. But no, it would be a world without suffering, but it would also be a world without love. A world without life. And perhaps, we could do different philosophical schools, right? Like maybe this is just samsara, and our role in life is to let it go. But the people that believe that most fundamentally also believe that alleviating suffering is also the thing to do. Maybe the point of this particular kind of life where we, that we cling to in a certain way, is to let go into the source from which we came. But I think either way, it's about responding in the moment to the suffering that we see and trying to do something about it, both in terms of in ourselves and in others.
Well, I work with two charities, this Population Matters, where you put the focus on actual numbers, but also the underlying problem is using too much of natural resources. And a better way of addressing that, instead of just saying numbers, is to talk about things like women's rights. Because if women have the decent education comparable to all the men, they can choose how many children they have, when they have them, and then they have a much better chance. The children can have decent education, decent future, look after their parents in old age. And there you don't need to mention the word population, but it happens naturally if women can choose their rights. Because I work also with a charity in East Africa, and there their main focus is on women's rights in the very underdeveloped areas, but mixing it with education so that men, instead of just wanting as many children as possible, because that's one of their only statuses in life, say, if you have fewer children, you don't chop down so many trees for firewood, the grass stays, the rain keeps coming, you can feed your animals, and so their quality of life goes up. Now surely that's better than the population numbers rocketing up when you're not going to be able to feed them and the environmental degradation just gets worse and worse.
What is the problem with extinction? Can someone please tell me? You guys.
We're fighting for the hope of life after us. It's not about extinction of one species, it's about the fact that what we're doing, we're causing extinction for all species.
We're causing extinction for all species. And what's the problem with that?
Because it's
So what?
It's called responsibility.
It's about your kids. Why are you having kids? No, seriously, I don't understand why you guys are having kids. If you're so worried about extinction, why are you having kids?
People to move away from them, not giving
Oh, you've already got them? Yes, I understand, but they're all going to die eventually, aren't they? So what's the problem with extinction? I still don't know. I don't understand. So, can you tell me what the problem with extinction is? I won't listen, so there's no... I will listen. Tell me what it is. It's the only planet with life on, really? Is it? I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, but let's say it is. So what?
So you're going to turn it
So
into
what?
the other planets?
Well, so what? So it ends up like Mars. Who cares?
Like when we bring life into existence, that there will be suffering, or at very least a risk of suffering. Do you not agree then that one of the ways that we can best avoid suffering,
Not to exist in the first place.
well, yes, is to not bring more life into existence? Obviously, we're here now, but there's certain actions that we can take to avoid bringing life into existence, and then they don't have to worry about the suffering that comes with life, the suffering that's going to come with climate change, with the changes that are going to come.
I mean, personally, I take a sort of fairly Buddhist view of this stuff, that ultimately the problem with suffering is attachment, and I think like that there is sort of death and decay is not in itself the bad thing. It's that we're attached to life in various ways, and the way that often comes about through a lack of care and a lack of love and a lack of connection and the illusion of separation that our thinking minds create.
Yeah.
Because we're all just part of life, right? And because we've got these minds that say I am and you are, we have this illusion of being separate. And I think a lot of the suffering comes from that. And in those moments where we experience something like what all the mystics throughout time have talked about, that kind of that oneness. Yeah. Then we are each other. I am, you are. Like, if I'm suffering, if you're suffering, it's the same suffering. And so that loving, the loving response to that is to try and resolve that in a way that's good for all of us. I mean, there is, of course, a sort of technical argument that is quite compelling at the moment, saying the extinction of the human species might create, might alleviate the suffering of millions of other species. But I think in practical terms, that's been superseded. That the reality of where we are now has taken that over, in the sense that humans have unleashed enough disaster and catastrophe that we now need to engage our capacity for healing and resolving that suffering.
So it's about raising people's quality of life is the sort of key thing.
The key thing is balancing the consumption of natural resources by humanity as a whole with what nature can provide and replenish. And at the moment, as you're probably aware, what is being consumed is about 2 times what nature can provide. And it's getting worse. Go to North America, it's even worse. You need 3 planets to provide the resources for everyone to live at their standard. You heard that comment about inequality, and that is one of the big problems. It's all about balancing things out. Balance what we consume with the resources that nature can provide. And if we can do it much more evenly between the rich countries and the less fortunate ones, so it'll be a lot better.
Because you love life and you love being alive. I understand that, but you are going to die at some stage, okay? And if everybody dies, that will be the end of it, this whole story, and so what? The whole thing is completely pointless anyway, isn't it? Kill myself? Alright, fair enough. Okay. Hooray! Yes, go on. Let's all cheer. Sorry, ladies, can you give me some advice exactly how I should do that? Have you got any? In a convenient way? No, but you've got to give me a bit. If you seriously want me to kill myself, can you at least give me some ideas about how I'm best to do it?
Why do you campaign against the gun?
Say that again? What's my motivation? I like doing this.
With those species that do go extinct, do you think that is a harm for the individuals themselves that exist now who will die out? Or is it a harm for those individuals who won't come into existence in the future?
I think it's both. I think it's both. I mean, I guess it comes down to sort of basically whether you have a kind of optimistic or pessimistic take on life. Does life have inherent value? Is life a miracle? I mean, Einstein said, you can treat life either as if everything is a miracle or as nothing is a miracle. I believe everything is a miracle, and like my most fundamental experiences in life, the ones that have felt most profound, most coherent, most connective, that make sense of everything, are the ones that make me feel that life is a miracle and it's worth treasuring. And so I try and proceed from that.
it's good that, you know, the people who are here now get a good life, but to me, it doesn't make sense to bring more people into the world for them to have a good life, because they never needed it in the first place, if you get what I mean. What do you think? So that's where the question about extinction comes
Exactly
from.
what you're saying. If you want a decent quality of life, that becomes more difficult with more and more people. You know the quotation from David Attenborough, the more and more people they have, it becomes more and more difficult, basically, to give everyone a decent quality of life. I haven't got the words exactly right on
I get what you mean, but I think even if the world had a tiny population, do you think that they should still continue reproducing? Because in my eyes, even if they have an amazing life, I think that's good for them, but it doesn't make sense to me to bring more people into the world. If I give an example, it's like, you know, given that we exist, it's good that we will at some point have a really nice retirement, right? But it doesn't make sense to say that I'm going to create someone else so that they can have a retirement, because they never needed it in the first place, if you get what I mean.
We're on the same wavelength.
Nobody has told me what's wrong with extinction. Think about it, guys. When we go extinct, there'll be no more problems. No more problems at all. There'll be no child abuse. There'll be no poverty. There'll be no people. There'll be no mines in the Congo to make your mobile phones. There'll be no more. There'll be no more problems.
I guess, like, if I didn't come into existence, or these animals didn't come into existence, any sentient being didn't come into existence, they wouldn't need the relief of not having the pain.
Yeah.
But they would also avoid the pain. Like,
But they also wouldn't have that possibility of like being conscious of the miracle of life. Like it's.
But did you think that?
Maybe it's all. It's Samsara. It's like it's all created by kind of semi-evil demiurge, and we'd be better off never having been born in the first place. But
Yes.
I think there is a sense in which, there is this sort of strange sense in terms of, to appreciate the miracle of life, you have to be in some way disconnected from it, because otherwise you can't have that. Like, God can only know herself through creating that which is somehow separate from myself, even though it's not ultimately separate, because it's all one.
But by the miracle of life, does that presuppose that life is good? Like, is already a gift?
In some subtle ultimate sense, I think yes, somehow. Like, even though it's all beyond good and evil, it's beyond. Life ultimately is beyond duality. I think there is a sort of, like, for me, like, there is some sort of tilting towards something like.
Do you think that would give me the right, if I believe that life is a gift? Do you think that would give me the right to bring others into existence, if they don't share that philosophy? And I'm not just talking about. I mean sentient beings in general.
If you can ask them in advance, kind of thing.
Well,
it's because the opposite. The question, the sort of pair question is: if you think life is ultimately suffering, does that give you the right to take it away from people and stop them?
Well,
because you could say, well, I'll just blow up 2 billion people, because that would stop them bringing others into existence that could suffer. And I think I'll kill all the. We could just kill all life on the planet, because that would prevent all the future suffering.
Yeah.
But then I don't know.
Do you think I do think there's a difference, though, between ending lives that are in existence and not bringing lives in to existence.
That actually the problem is the system. It's a proper problem. The whole system is a zero-sum game, and it is going to wipe us all out, and it's going to happen whether you like it or not.
I think it's all quite mysterious, and it's not really for us to say, like, like, we are thrown into this, and all we can do is try and.
We should maybe stop throwing people in.
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, it's obviously it's a very live discussion amongst environmentalists and stuff. Like, I had 2 children by mistake, if I'm honest, so like it's, but yeah, I don't know. I think if they can be kids that contribute to lessening suffering, then that's a good thing. But then you can't force them, and if you try, then they'll probably end up being bankers. So.
We're essentially agreeing. We want to offer a decent quality of life to all humans, but also to all other forms of life. Whereas right now, we're destroying all the other forms, or the vast majority of the other forms of life. Whether it's animals, birds, insects, or just vegetation. We're chopping down the forests to feed ourselves.
Thank you.